They disapproved of him a month ago. They disapproved of him 2 months ago, and they still disapprove of him. I mean, the polling is quite steady despite. Ooh, let's see. This is interesting.
Hold on.
We want to see if we can.
I think we need to reboot, which means turn it off and on.
Maybe we might need to do that. Can we try? No, it doesn't seem to be.
Come on, people.
We got
it's
Penn.
Monday.
We've got Penn working. Well, we could toss it to John, or I could merely say this. Look, people disapproved of Trump 2 months ago. His disapproval rating was 64%. Last month, it was 66%. And this month, it is the same. 64%. Okay. So what we're talking about is that Americans, you can pay attention to me here, Americans still disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing on Iran, and 75% of independents disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing on Iran. So regardless of any deal that was made, the American people still disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing on Iran, despite whatever he's doing.
If you ever wondered if Harry didn't have all these numbers just bouncing around in his head, now you know. He doesn't even need the board. He just needs a chalkboard. And it's all good, and that is why we...
Look at this!
It works!
Oh! We did it, and I got the numbers right.
You did.
Disapprove of Trump on Iran. In April, it was 64%. Now, in May, it was 66%, and now it is 64%. And the 75% of independents disapprove of Trump on Iran. The bottom line is this. No matter what deal has been made, the clear majority, 2/3 of Americans still disapprove of the job that Donald Trump is doing when it comes to that conflict.
Let me ask you one more question. You know, when Americans look at this, do they think that Trump agreed to this deal and that he accomplished his goals, that he thinks, hey, I got this right?
Yeah, okay. So why did Trump agree to the deal? Well, it's simply this. Why Trump agree to the Iran deal? Wants the war to end or think the U.S. met its war goals? Look at this. 66% of Americans simply think he wanted to end the war. And even among Republicans, his own party, don't think that, in fact, the Trump administration met its war goals. In fact, they think he wants to just end the war. So this idea, hey, we won, everyone, we won. The American people don't think that is exactly what happened. What they think happened was Iran was fighting back. America looked at the chance of victory in terms of what Trump initially laid out as the chance of victory. They did not think that that was possibly going to be accomplished. We're talking about 2/3 of Americans, and even a majority of Republicans did.
Yeah, a lot of people looking at the Strait of Hormuz is saying it was open before, they just want it back open because we're all being affected by it. Harry Enten, it is a pleasure.
It is a pleasure. We'll come back later this week and we'll try and make sure all the tech is working.
John.
Harry Enten turned the Muggle wall into a magic wall before our very eyes. Right.
You know what? I try my very best.
You are magic.
I did
it.
Yeah, there we go. And there we go. I did it.
The president had a hard time generating much enthusiasm for this, even among his closest allies. And I think the reason for that is twofold. First of all, the agreement that we actually got was very bare bones, very vaguely worded, as the president advertised it would be. There was one paragraph that dealt with the nuclear program, which was, of course, the cause of the war, and it only requires the Iranians to dilute, basically what's called downblend their nuclear fuel to a position where it would be harder to use in a weapon. But none of the other nuclear issues are addressed. And when we read the rest of the document, missiles weren't addressed. You had a little bit of that earlier. Human rights weren't addressed, so forth. And I think people looked at this and said, if Barack Obama had brought the same deal to the table, what would Donald Trump have said?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, especially as obviously that is what kind of loomed over his entire negotiation with the Iranians. And, Shelby, when you listen to that, and we're in this point where we are tonight, where Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are going to Switzerland, TBD if the vice president himself goes, if it gets to that point. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of enthusiasm from the allies for this agreement, but that's because they want this war to be over with, because they don't want to have to deal with the Iran war anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that is the core the core reason that people are excited for this deal is because for months now, everybody has been saying, let's get this over with. We don't want to be dealing with it. The Gulf allies don't want to be dealing with it. Europe doesn't want to be dealing with it. But fundamentally, I think the point stands. Some of the president's staunchest allies who really have not criticized him at all over the past several years are coming out and saying, we don't think that this is a good deal. And one of the reasons that is because the reason we started all of this is because of Iran's nuclear program. And fundamentally, while yes, there's going to be technical talks, this memorandum of understanding is not it does not address that directly. And there's a lot of skepticism on Capitol Hill and even among some of the president's staunchest allies that I've privately spoken to inside and outside of the administration that they're going to be able to get a more solid deal on the issue of nuclear.
Well, in terms of that, David Sanger, we've heard so much criticism from Republicans, and it's not like this is just coming from typical critics of this administration who don't like anything the president does. I mean, it's from Ted Cruz to Roger Wicker to all of these others who were saying, that they just don't believe that this idea that Iran's not going to get any money from this is true. I mean, listen to what Senator Ted Cruz himself said about this.
I don't want a lunatic religious fanatic who chants death to America to receive $300 billion, whether it comes from us or it comes from some other regional partners. I don't care where it comes from. Giving people who want to kill you the billions and billions of dollars from any source historically has proven an enormous mistake.
I mean, this is certainly something that, we're really seeing Republicans break with the White House on.
Well, we are, and that is an interesting issue as the midterms arise and so forth. But it also gets to a fundamental question, Caitlin, about what is the theory of the case here about what would make the Iranians give up their nuclear program. And President Trump's theory of the case is that an overwhelming amount of investment into the country will be so tempting to them, as it has been to every other person he's dealt with over the course of his real estate career, that they won't be able to turn this down. And they want prosperity and investment and reintegration more than they want to have a weapon that would enable them to confront the United States, or at least to deter the United States and Israel. And that was also his theory going into North Korea, right? The first term, you and I covered some of this together, right? That you could promise Kim Jong-un you were going to build giant resorts along the beaches of North Korea, and they'd give up their nuclear program. Sometimes that just doesn't work because there are regimes that fundamentally view the weapon as part of retaining their power. And you've seen in the past 3 months how ingenious they are at retaining their power.